Good afternoon, Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, industry leaders, distinguished guests. Welcome to this first afternoon panel, but the industry mission critical panel. We hear it every day. We heard it also this morning. Mining, minerals are in the spotlight. Today, at least for these 3 days, Riyadh and FMF is in the world spotlight. We hear it also, and we heard it in the previous panels. Industry needs more. Political leaders need more. It's unacceptable for them to wait 20 years for the development of the new mines. So what we are going to do? Very recently published study of World Economic Forum and Carney articulated very important, though somewhat unpleasant fact. Simply, we don't have time to develop and discover new deposits, to turn them into operational mines or well-running processing plants. So what are we going to do to address all the needs of the critical value chains? This is the panel that is going to discuss this very important topic. We could have hardly assembled better panel of the very bold and experienced leaders as we have today. Let me briefly introduce our panel. I would like to start with His Excellency, Engineer Karim Badawi, Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, Arab Republic of Egypt. Welcome, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Adam Lundin, Chair, Lundin Mining Company. Catherine Raw, Chief Development Officer, BHP. Graham Kerr, Chief Executive Officer, South 32. Gary Corte, Group Chief Executive Officer, Hancock Prospecting. And last but not least, Paolo Castellari, Chief Executive Officer, Eramet. But that's not all who will be discussing in this panel. About a few days ago, we launched a survey, audience survey, for also the general public to engage in this discussion. But we also would like to share your perspective on a very important topic of this panel. In a minute, or you already see it, there will be a QR code for you to share your perspective on the question, what really matters most? The next competitiveness wave is about upgrading recovery and resource efficiency in the full value chain, in the discovery, mining, processing, and reuse. Not only waiting or finding the next tier 1 deposit. In which part of the value chain do you see the biggest value potential when looking at the 2030, 2035 horizon? Is it in the discovery, mining, processing, or reuse? Please share your perspective. The leaders will comment upon your views towards the end of the panel. In that in mind, I would like to open the panel with the lightning round question. When it comes to the major game changers, whether it is in the technology, whether it is operational, whether it is organizational, whether it is in the policy, where do you see the most material increase in the recoverable supply by 2030? Please, 1 sentence, 2 sentence responses. Can we start with you, Minister Badawi?
So, thank you very much. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be here, and I cannot start my answer without really passing my recognition to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and for His Excellency Bandar Al Khuraif, for hosting us, and Vice, Minister, Engineer Khalid Al Mudaffar for really the hospitality and so forth. I believe really one of the most important aspects, you can have the best of geology, the best of infrastructure, best of energy, and best of fiscal, policies and regulations. I would say that the human element is actually extremely important. The human element and the capacity building and the talent that the industry needs to be able to unlock that potential and to leverage technology, to leverage all of the digital enablement, and to leverage all of the capabilities to unlock the potential. remains actually the key strength of the sector, and I will elaborate a little bit more, in the next part.
Thank you, Minister. Adam?
Yeah, thanks. It's very glad to be here, third year in a row. Thank you, His Excellency, and great to be back in Saudi. I think, increasing resource or increasing efficiencies or getting more out of it. I think, Lundin Mining, when we bought Candelaria, it had about a 12-year mine life, and now we've extended it past 25 years, and that was all through the drill bit. We bought Caserones in 2020, and it was doing about 100,000 tons of copper, and we should be doing around 125,000. So you're seeing an increase, and that was really optimization, cycle times, making sure you're getting recycling your water and getting more out of your facilities. So just efficiency.
Thank you. Catherine, your view?
Thank you. Just to repeat my thanks for being here. It's a privilege. I think I'll focus on copper processing technologies. So for me, there are two that we're particularly excited about that can really have a meaningful difference between now and 2030, which is low-grade primary sulfide heap leach, so using catalysts in order to be able to process marginal ores. And then the second one would be coarse particle flotation. So being able to process marginal ores and bring them into production in the next 5 years could actually have a huge incremental uplift to the world supply.
Thank you. Graham?
Thanks for obviously being here. I guess from my perspective, I would add maybe one more dimension, which, while you mentioned it, is going to be around policy. I think global policies on permitting, tariffs, geopolitical are going to have a huge driver in what happens in our industry.
Gary?
Yeah, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you. In the iron ore industry, I think it's about processing a greater proportion of our existing ore bodies, as well as improving recovery. So it's going to reduce the footprint and lower costs.
Paulo?
No, thank you very much. For me, it's a very easy job, right? I mean, it's very hard to deny anything that's being said. But from what I've learned, and in my opinion, it's got to be about adapting our operating models. Right now, we see mining companies dealing with hard rock underground mines and the brines at the same time. So being able to adapt the mindset, the operating models, the planning arrangements, for me, is got to be the key changer.
Very good. Thank you for sharing this warm-up round, your views. And as we know, the industry is not only bringing the new innovation and new things. It's also about bringing them into the new jurisdictions, into the new environment, into the new, much more complex deposits. Let's anchor this discussion and these game changers in the real-life example. Catherine, can I open with you, with your new experience of going into the new jurisdiction of Argentina, with a new partner? What makes it succeed in the new jurisdiction, new environment, new ores, new partnership models?
Well, given our new partner is sitting next to me, Lundin Mining, I'm going to have to be very polite here.
He will be checking up on it.
So I think let's step back a bit and say, why is partnership important? It's so important because, as you say, going into a new jurisdiction where we don't have expertise, where we don't have inbuilt infrastructure, inbuilt relationships, going into technology, altitude, really being able to develop tier one assets comes with huge amount of risk, huge amount of capital, development, permitting, every other risk that you can think of is there. And so the importance of having a partner is that risk is shared. And I'll quote my very first boss, who said to me when I was in my 20s, Catherine, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. And I think that's exactly right. For a start, Lundin Mining owned the deposits, so we weren't going to be doing anything unless they agreed to it. But the second is, by having a partner that you can trust, you can really be able to share a long-term vision. And I think that's, what was it? We first invested in Filo, didn't we, to begin with?
2020, 2021, yeah.
Yeah. So we began to get to know one another. We started to work out, what was it that Filo Lundin wanted to build. You know, what was their vision? Did it match our vision? You know, what we saw in the Vicuña district was a sort of Escondida type deposit that we could be there for the next 30, 50 years. Did Lundin Mining have the same view? How can we put deposits together? It's Jose Maria and Vicuña. You know, working through it all, what you really felt was that we both had the same North Star. And with that comes trust, and with that comes a willingness to deal with all of the challenges that we knew we were going to deal with. It was never going to be easy, but knowing you've got someone at your side to do it with you actually builds a huge amount of comfort.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Adam, can I really check upon Catherine now and to be a little bit more pushy? It is a partnership where there are different sizes, different organizational pace, different operating models. How does it feel from your side to align early on the risk sharing, on the technology implementation, on other JV important dimensions?
Yeah, I think when forming a partnership, and it's been great with BHP and moving Vicuña forward, but really when BHP took a stake in Filo, it allowed us to get to know each other. We were able to visit their operations, be able to better understand their culture. And yeah, Lundin Mining is a lot smaller company than BHP, so maybe the approval process can be a bit quicker. But understanding your partner's timelines and getting into a long-term relationship together, okay, that's not going to be excused. We know the timelines, and you understand that that's all up front. And taking the time to get to know each other, you're not going to have any surprises. So I think it was just a good period before coming together and formalizing the Vicuña JV, where we got to understand each other and been able to continue the success we've had in the Vicuña district.
Yeah. No, thank you. What I am hearing is about aligning early. It's about the trust in the partnership.
Yes.
So it's about the alignment. But also it's about bringing it to the new jurisdiction that is investable.
Yep.
Can I stay for a while on that level, Minister Badawi? And for all of us in the industry, we know that it's very important what signals we are listening to. What are the signals that the policymakers, the countries, and also referring to your submission yesterday at the ministerial table, even the regions are sending to the companies when inviting them to come, to invest, to scale, to develop the capabilities? And what strategies have you implemented in Egypt to attract the investment?
So thank you very much. And you know, for me, maybe I would summarize it by saying that the role of the of the government, and I say it always very openly and very transparently, is to enable your success, so the success really of the private sector and so forth, because we're firm believers that the success of the private sector is actually a success, you know, for the country, and it is not an either-or scenario. And this is really, if we look over the last 18 months, you know, in Egypt in the mining sector, the mining sector only represents 1% of our GDP. And we have clear ambition and targets to bring it to 5 and 6%, you know, over the next few years. And we've taken a commitment that to be able to do that, we have to really build on 4 critical factors. You know, you have the geology, you have the infrastructure, which is very important, the energy. But the part that we knew we needed to work on is on the fiscal regimes, on the regulatory framework, to be able actually to bring the security and stability for investors to actually know that their investment, you know, is safe for decades. The mining sector, the mining investment, you know, is not a short cycle. It's a long game, and hence we have really worked actively in terms of working on 2 key, you know, let's say, game changers to enable, you know, an environment which makes Egypt now very investable in the mining sector. The first one was looking in terms on what is very critical for our partners, existing investors, and future partners in the mining sector, what is very important for them. The aspects around permitting has been, you know, mentioned as a very important factor, and this is why we have really worked in terms on making regulatory changes to our mining, you know, our regulatory authority to become actually an economic authority, which actually now is involved for the mineral resources and mineral industries, and an authority which is actually, it comprises of members of the different parts of the let's say, the agencies or government which are involved in the value chain. So are part of that members of the board. So for example, the Ministry of Environment actually has a representative in this body. Ministry of Finance for incentives and mechanisms are members of there. Ministry of Industry is a member of the board. So that way that this whole board works as a one-stop shop for our existing partners or new partners to be able to really facilitate, permitting, accelerate, and making sure that their focus is on helping, investors thrive in Egypt. The other important aspect was also to enable actually us to be able to help investors with data. Data is very important, and hence why also one of the first actually actions from this, new board, it was actually to initiate a nationwide survey, aerial survey, to be able to quantify all the available kind of endowment in reliable, and digital, and in terms of data that can be able to de-risk, investments, into the mining sector in Egypt. And bearing in mind that the last time a survey was done was in 1984. So this will be the first nationwide, aerial survey that will take place. The other part was listening to partners in terms on exploitation agreements, how they should look like. Legacy-wise, we had exploitation agreements which were built on the oil and gas profit sharing. We've actually listened to our partners, global partners such as AngloGold Ashanti, Barrick Gold, and Centamin and others, to really look in terms on what is best-in-class global standards in terms of exploitation agreements, which actually are enabling securing investments, for 3 decades, at least, for investors. And this is something that we've also changed the laws to be able to enable that to take place. We also realize that it's not only about the major companies, but it's also fostering an environment which is attractive for investment for junior companies. And hence why we're also launching a new incentive schemes for junior companies to be able to have focus all of their, let's say, financial resources into exploration activity to be able to create more value and simplify the processes for them. So if I were to kind of simplify a bit, the answer is that, our basic principle has been in terms of making Egypt investable, for the long term in the mining sector by listening to our existing partner, listening to the future partners, and actually ensuring a model which is a win-win for all parties. And again, I would reiterate that the success, of the private sector and ensuring that their shareholders actually are, successful is actually a success for the, for the country to be able to unlock the potential of these mineral resources, job creation, and also by fostering an environment that we enable synergies and collaboration, with all the partners and so forth.
Very good, very good. A lot of passion from the policymaker. But let me also make a check with the real investors, and we listen to you, what you are doing from the Egypt point of view, but we also know about you, Gary, about your recent partnership with national champion here in Saudi Arabia. What signals have you been listening to come to the new jurisdictions? What attracted you? Is it data? Is it capability? The hope for the next big deposit? What is it?
I think it's many things. I think the Minister's touched on some of them. But we've been very impressed by the level of support and the level of commitment that the Saudi government has to building a leading mining industry. And you can see that through the mining policy settings, the fiscal policy settings that they've put out. We like the low cost of energy. It's very competitive. I think the other thing I would underline is what impressed us was the pride that the Saudi government has in the mining industry that they're building. You don't see that everywhere. And also the ambition that they have to build a world-scale mining industry here. And those factors are really important when you're considering long-term, multi-decade investments, as we need to in the mining industry. And the other point I'll just finish on is we've seen a responsiveness which has been fantastic. We raised the fact that bigger block sizes are important because they give you a higher chance of having an economic development the government has listened to that and taken that on board. So we're very pleased. We like what we see. We've had a great experience so far.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. And still, let me stay on this topic, because if the environment is investable, the new jurisdictions are welcoming, the partners have open arms to welcome the investors. Still, we get to the very important fact, competitiveness. Yeah? Can I explore this with you, Graham? Yeah? The grades are declining, the deposits more complex. What else needs to be there to be competitive in such an environment?
Yeah, so an interesting question. If you put aside the policy and the resource there, I think your generalisation is right. Generally, deposits are getting lower grade, they're getting more difficult, they're getting deeper. The technology, though, I think in the mining industry is still relatively immature, perhaps to something like oil and gas or automotive industry. And I think we're just touching the surface now on different technologies we can use. And they range from obviously the fundamentals about keeping your people safe with remote operating equipment, battery equipment underground instead of diesel equipment. But I think there are other opportunities around, to Catherine's point, around processing technology that we're just starting to touch on. But also, if you think about the world's going geopolitically at the moment, there are some, if you like, byproducts in the past which were considered waste, such as gallium or antimony, that are actually very attractive in today's marketplace. So I think the overall value of what you're processing is going up. So how do you extract the full spectrum of materials to make the most out of that? I think that's a big opportunity, that technology around processing and just applying a different process in terms of thought around, it's a huge opportunity for the industry.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And let me refer to the opening remarks I made. It's about new deposits scaling up, but not always. Really, we need to get more out of the existing stones. So let me pivot more into the existing assets. We really need to get more out of what we have. Paolo, may I turn to you and to ask you, where do you see the major levers, major drivers, how we get more out of the existing operations, more out of the existing stones?
Look, as I shared, I think it's got to be my 33 years in the industry, having seen larger conglomerates in mining, smaller junior companies, investment funds. I think at the end it's got to be around adapting our operating model and also understanding the reality that more and more we're going to have smaller assets. And our ability to be agile, our ability to adapt, the human aspect, as His Excellency mentioned, having a more human-centric organization, thinking about the right incentives. These are actually, in my mind, very much technology drivers as much as improving recovery grades and these sort of things. I don't know, and in my experience, I think there's a lot of room for us to invest much more time on that, understanding the entire value chain, being more customer-centric, being more human-centric, and again, being just ready to adapt to the new reality that's coming down.
Yeah. No, thank you. And Gary, you run huge operations. Where do you see no regrets? Is it throughput? Is it processing efficiency? Where do you see the major, more volumes coming?
I think for us, it's definitely, as I said at the start, focusing on utilising more of the ore body. One of the things that we have at Roy Hill is we've already mined in excess of 400 million tonnes of material, which is lower grade, which is sitting on stockpile. So we're evaluating at the moment dense media separation to be able to upgrade that material. It's huge saving in cost, less dewatering. It's already sitting on a stockpile. It makes a lot of sense to minimise the footprint, lower cost to be able to utilise that material. And then also, recoveries and improving recoveries, particularly the ultra-fines portion of the process stream. We implemented recently a WIMS plant, and we managed to recover another 5 million tonnes of material through that, which had previously been going through to tail. So that's a big win for the environment, big win for our costs. Very little incremental cost to process that, and it was at a good grade. So for us, it's about making the most of the ore body, and I think we would bring that approach to any new ore bodies that we develop as well.
No, thank you. Thank you. And if we squeeze more out of the existing assets, we still rely on the existing network of the processing, which we all know is highly concentrated. And in balance of the resilience or the secure supply chain, where do you see, Minister Badawi maybe, the major levers to develop the sustainable, resilient value chains and supply chains of the minerals?
No, but so for me, it is really all about collaboration and partnership, because and this is why I would also like to, to highlight something actually from the Future Mineral Forum is I am a firm believer on technology, right, and on the human, element capacity building and being able to really build blocks around collaboration and synergies. And if you look at really what the Future Mineral Forum is doing, is it really helped to bring to light a lot of various technologies, a lot of various frameworks. I like the work of operating models, and for the whole world to be able to learn from and to adapt. And this is why, for example, for me, I'm a firm believer that today technology can unlock potential that we did not know existed. And this is why when we look at, for example, if you look at the Arabian Shield, right, going from Egypt and into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I think actually the success of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in terms of the aerial mapping done to be able to unlock what potential exists, in the kingdom and so forth, those are part of the things that we're also taking lessons learned, right, and also launching, surveys, as well in Egypt to be able to leverage from this collaboration and this partnership. And technology actually will help us to be able to unlock more of that potential. And when you're looking at resilient supply chain, it is really all about an ecosystem whereby we need to be able to work together to be able to leverage, the synergies which exist, whether from existing raw minerals availability, in different parts, of the world, or in terms of availability of existing infrastructure that can actually deliver those minerals to where they are needed for processing, and as well how to leverage the infrastructure to foster an environment for processing capabilities to be able to take place. And this is where really Egypt is really, working in collaboration with all our partners in the region to play really a key role in enabling not only the mining sector in Egypt, but collaborating, right, with other, countries, in the region, and with technology, providers, and with, companies, and how to really foster an environment of collaborative partnership. And again, I thank the Kingdom really as well for the Future Mineral Forum, because it helps us to be able to do that and helps us to provide the platform to build a more resilient supply chain in the mineral sector.
Thank you. Quick reaction from you, Catherine. What the biggest mining major in the world can do to improve the resilience of the supply chain?
I think the main thing in terms of practical steps is really to understand exactly where the constraint lies. So, often people say we need to have a more secure value chain, so we're going to do more exploration to find resources, to find actually that that's not the constraint. The constraint is midstream or downstream. So I think, one of the things that's impressed me with the way this forum has looked at the problem over the last few years is that it's begun to recognize it's both exploration and discovery and development of mines as a pillar of the economy, but also that processing and having processing hubs and centers of excellence lead you to be able to unlock constraints that would otherwise not be unlocked if all you're doing is developing upstream resources. So for me, it's really just understanding your value chain and where the bottlenecks lie, just as process flow teaches you in mining every day.
Yeah. No, thank you. And before we look at the perspective of the audience, let me also explore one very important question. Each of you, I was marking you, mentioned technology innovation. Mm-hmm. Very often, mining industry leaders saying, we need more technology, we need more innovation. When you speak to the entrepreneurs, when you speak to these innovators, they say, it's pretty hard to sell to mining. It's very traditional. What we need to do to make it easier? Paolo, quick comment from you.
So very quickly, I think it's got to be about putting the right people in the right place, because when we talk about innovation, technology, even exploration, the mindsets, the KPIs, even the incentives have to be different. So if we treat the same topics the same way, we're not going to get a different answer. So in my opinion, that's the key thing. To foster innovation, we need to make sure that the innovators have the right place to go, the right place to speak with, and again, having the right incentives, the right conversations, and the right people.
Yeah, thank you. And if I can ask the production team maybe to display the result of the audit poll or audience poll, and hopefully we get it online. But now reveal. So where do we see the major material impact, or where the major value can be realized by 2030? And pretty equal type of responses, but reuse is in a leading position, processing, mining less, 20% of our audience thinks about it, and discovery also about 20%. Anyone would like to, Graham, Kerry, would like to comment, share your perspective on this result? Does it reconcile with how you are thinking about it?
Yeah, if I was going to be honest, the reuse one is driven, I think, a lot by the circular economy, sustainability for the right reasons. It's probably not something we're all particularly good at, well, particularly from a South 32 perspective, because we own one portion of the value chain. But I do think the future lies in how do you sort of play across that chain, not necessarily own it or control it, but how do you participate in that next stage of development? And the classic in that's going to be the EV battery. How much of those materials can get recycled and reused again?
Yeah, Paolo?
Can I comment just on the mining and discovery front? I believe this one, from a country perspective, it resonates quite a lot, because from a country perspective and from a global perspective, the need for more minerals, is let's say is a given fact. And for us, from a government perspective, to how we can work to foster an environment to make mining easier, more efficient, and more affordable, and also discoveries reduce the risk, and also sponsor and support junior companies and different technologies to be able to be unlocked and to be risk takers in providing a former to enable new technologies to have an avenue for growth. And again, I really want to reiterate Egypt really kind of drive and support to be able to unlock that potential with all the partners.
Paolo, very quick reaction from you.
No, I was just building on what Graham and Catherine was saying about processing, understanding the value chain, and of course reuse because of the grades and because of slag and all these sort of things. So for me, it resonates totally.
No, very good, and thank you, audience, for this. But let's now pressure test this. We discuss what we need to do and how we have done it in some real life examples. What I would like to do is very quickly, each of you, where do you see the major barriers? Is it in the technology? Is it in the processing? Is it in the organizational models? Or is it in the culture? 2 words, answers, barrier and what the fix is. Can I start with you, Paolo?
For me, it's culture and incentives.
Thank you.
I think the biggest issue we're facing at the moment is permitting. Timelines in Australia have doubled over the last 10 years. We don't advocate for lower standards, but by removing duplication and allowing parallel processing, you can actually improve that situation significantly.
Very good.
I would build on Gary's example. We have 2. New mine we're building in the US. Fast 41 has been a dream process. Existing operation in the southwest of WA, been there for 30 years. Took 9 years to get an extension permit. So I think still policy/permitting is a huge issue.
Okay.
If I answered the adoption of, what is it that's holding back the adoption of technology and innovation? It's culture. And what's the biggest unlock in terms of value? It's probably data. And I think we talked about that earlier, is that if we were to collaborate and share data, pool that data, and then apply technology and innovation, AI, to that data, that would probably solve a lot of the discovery problems, a lot of the processing problems that we have, because we're then able to make better informed decisions. So culture to be able to take risk, and then data in order to be able to make informed decisions.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said and agree with Catherine. Like, you have to have the culture that allows you to take calculated risks. Like, if we're doing exploration, you got to explore quicker, you got to wait on your assays. Can you implement geological AI that gives you a better understanding of your deposit and lets you drill it off quicker? Is it wanting to improve recoveries, and do you need, to add Jameson cells, and is that going to help? But just fostering the culture where you're willing to take those calculated risks.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Minister?
For me, your question is something that we've asked ourselves very thoroughly, because Egypt has one of the, tier 1 gold mines, among the top 15 in the world, the Sukari gold mine operated by Anglo Gold Ashanti. And we've asked ourselves why we don't have many more. We have a thriving public sector on the phosphate industry, but we ask ourselves, so why do we don't have so many more? And I think the answer was really around culture, as to be able to really kind of listen to what is required along the value chain, what are the steps that the government needs to do to reduce those barriers and to provide enabling solutions in terms of fostering an environment to address, the concerns and to have an investable country. So I think culture and not being afraid to change things and being able to listen and being able to be really collaborative, I believe is really very, very critical. And this is what we've been really, aiming to do and working on over the last 18 months. And, with our existing partners and in full collaboration with, other countries who have led the way, taking the learnings, and at the same time with existing partners and as well future partners. So I like the culture aspect because it's all about mindset. And this links me back to the first comment I mentioned about people. It's really all about people at the end of the day, who make those environments and who make those decisions, who shape the future, of the sector.
Yeah. No, very interesting. And I heard culture several times. Yeah. And my question was the barrier and what the fix would be. Is there an easy fix to culture? Anyone of you would like to comment? Catherine, Paolo, Kari?
Well, one of the things we're trying to do, and I'm not saying BHP's solved the problem, but you talked about parallel operating systems. So through the operating system, you can create the responsibility to be innovative. If you start to say that that's part of your duty in doing your job, in order to start not just, mining is all about certainty, risk mitigation, safety. You spend your whole operating day trying to avoid risk. You have to change that mentality to an engineer and say you want to take some risk, not with your life, not with your equipment, but with how you do your job. And if you build that into the operating system and you build time for them to actually focus on it, then what it does is it creates room and it starts to build a flywheel of innovation.
No, thank you. Thank you, Catherine.
And if I may, just to build on that, the time conversation is a key one. I mean, we look at our diaries, how much time do we invest in this topic? And I think you have the answer. So making sure that we invest the time to impact on culture, impact on the right conversations, to me, is key.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe the culture is one of the top word in the new mining industry terminology, if I can say it in this way. But let's be a little bit more futuristic towards the end of the panel. And I think we found the alignment or agreement that we really don't have time to develop the new or existing deposits when we are looking at the 2030, 2035 horizons into the new operational mines or well-running processing plants. So if we fast forward to 2031, Riyadh is still in the spotlight for being the mining Davos of the world. What is the one measurable outcome each of you want to be true because of technology or processing or changes to your ways of working And what collaboration do you need from the ecosystem? Can I start with you, Minister Badawi?
Very good. So, for me, if I were to look at, at Egypt, is we've taken lots of steps to look at the regulatory framework, fiscal regimes, incentives, for our existing partners, future partners, and so forth. When I visualize really, 5 years down the line and so forth, is really an environment where today, instead of having, 13 junior companies operating, we have 200, companies operating. Instead of having one tier one asset, we have multiple tier one assets right in the country. And above all is that we are able as a government and with all our partners to provide return for the private sector to the investments, that they're, involved in, and that we are providing an environment where they can take calculated actually risks in terms of deploying new technologies and so forth, and at the same time that there is value creation, for the Egyptian economy, because mining can play a major role in the Egyptian economy and in terms of job creation and better quality of life, for everyone. So I think for me, we have a great opportunity ahead of us, and we're very excited actually what the future, will bring, and we're looking forward to have really, all new partners to be with us onto this journey to provide a better future for everyone.
Thank you, Minister Badawi. Can I change the order? Can I go to the far end, to you, Paolo?
No, for me, measurable outcomes will be the ability to build partnerships, to learn with other parties. How is it that we operate in the different levels of the value chain, and being able to share more knowledge.
Graham?
I think for me, if we are going to grow the industry and at speed, we touched on permitting is one of the issues, but I think there's a lot of strength in partnerships. And, we're busy working with Martin, or just started. I think that provides a great opportunity to add additional project development skills, to bring that to the table, but at the same time, be able to do that efficiently with a local partner. And I think the other thing we see is very much, I think we have an obligation to maximise the use of ore bodies. The timeframes for permitting new ore bodies keep stretching out, and so it makes a lot of sense, whether it's an existing ore body or a new ore body, to put a lot more time and effort into making sure that we get the most and everything we can out of it.
Thank you. Graham?
Similar theme, resource optimisation and efficiency, getting the most out of it via partnerships and innovation.
Catherine?
Measure of success is, are we mining tons in 2031 that we would otherwise have not been mining? I.e. permitting, technology, discovery, all of this has led to what we predict the future to be in 2031, to actually be mining more tons than what we say we're going to be mining today. That will be the measure of success. That's the KPI.
Thank you. Adam?
Yeah, I think the measure success by 2031, how are you doing it? It's like, are you creating, maybe it's not a volume metric, but it's a value metric. Are you creating an ecosystem with the host nations, which resource it is? Are you building out those value chains and empowering and employing locals around? I think there's no better ripple effect than the mining sector. It's very human intensive, and it can be a great benefiter to a lot of societies done the right way.
No, very well. I think also the audience, I hope you will acknowledge the panel of the bold leaders who are aware of the fact that we don't have time to develop all the new or existing deposits when we are looking at 2030, 2035 horizons. And if I can summarize on your behalf what I have been hearing, we don't have time. We are aware of that. We don't need only the new technologies, but we also need the new ways of working, new operating models. We need to bring them into the new jurisdictions, apply them on the new, more complex deposits. And one interesting thing, all of you were talking about the culture, how we work with our people, how the culture of our people working with the data, with the new deposits in the new jurisdictions, how we can change that. There is not much time. Ladies and gentlemen, join me thanking this extraordinary panel of the bold leaders. This was about how we get more out of the existing stones.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.